Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on circular economy for e-waste management with a focus on local repair of solar products in displacement settings. My name is Elif Güldemir and I'm the lead of the e-waste task force at the GPA. I will be facilitating today's session. So before we dive in, just a quick note on how we'd like to run the session today. We really want to make this very interactive, so please feel free to share your thoughts and questions as we go. You can use the raise your hand function if you'd like to speak during the Q&A, or simply use the chat box for questions, reflections, or useful resources throughout the session. Your insights and experiences are very much welcome. Please share your ideas openly. And to start us off, please introduce yourself in the chat by sharing your name, organization, and location. So while you do that, I will give a bit of an intro to this webinar. So today's session is part of GPA's ongoing work to facilitate knowledge sharing across our wide range of stakeholders. The GPA stands for Global Platform for Action on Sustainable Energy in Displacement Settings, and it is hosted at UNITAR, United Nations Institute for Training and Research. So for those who might be a bit less familiar, the GPA is a global initiative working to improve energy access for displacement affected communities, including refugees, internally displaced people, and their host communities. So with that short intro out of the way, let me quickly run through the agenda. We'll begin with some opening remarks from Gogla, setting the scene for the discussion. Next, we'll dive into two e-waste pilot projects implemented in refugee settlements. First, we'll hear about the Bidi e-waste project presented by IOM. Then we'll explore the Green Innovation Hub pilot jointly presented by UNHCR NGO Forum for Public Health and UNITAR GPA. After these presentations, we'll move into a Q&A where we invite your questions, whether by raising your hand or using the chat box. Finally, we will introduce some key resources on e-waste management and close the session. We really hope this webinar provides useful insights and sparks ideas for your own work. And with that, let's get started. So the GPA's engagement on this topic began about 4 years ago when we first published the landscaping report focused on e-waste management from off-grid solar products in displacement settings. And this report marked an important starting point for us. It framed some of the risks, but also the opportunities of managing e-waste in a more responsible way. And since then, we've built a task force bringing together organizations like IOM, UNHCR, and WFP, all of whom are working to address e-waste within their offices and field operations. And in 2022, we hosted a two-part webinar series to introduce the topic more broadly within our network. Since then, the conversation has only continued to grow. We've seen new initiatives emerge or existing ones expand, like we will hear more about in a bit. And across different contexts, we're seeing increased interest in the topics of repair, recycling, and vocational training activities from humanitarian and development partners, as well as donors. But of course, challenges remain. Safe and scalable recycling options are still quite limited. Many displacement settings fall outside of national e-waste frameworks, if they exist at all. And while the momentum is building, we still need more long-term approaches that include e-waste across the whole humanitarian response cycle, so from procurement until the end of life. And today's webinar is a chance to take stock of all of this, to reflect on our progress, remaining barriers, and how we can keep building momentum together. So thank you so much, and I very much look forward to the discussion today. With that, let me invite Drew Corbin, who is the Program Manager for Consumer Protection and Technology at Gogla, for opening remarks. Drew, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Elif, and welcome everybody to today's webinar. I'm certainly looking forward to learn from the two case studies that we're going to have today with from Bidi and Cox's Bazar. But first, let me say a few words about Gogler and what the off-grid sector more widely is doing on e-waste management and circularity. So Gogler is the global association for the off-grid solar industry. We have 200 member companies and investors that are delivering clean, quality, affordable products for people living in off-grid scenarios. So it's interesting to see the development and evolution of the industry. It's moved from solar lanterns to solar home systems and appliances, solar water pumps, fridges, and more recently, kind of solar generators with AC outputs for larger productive uses. So really thinking about kind of residential households, productive uses, enterprises, farmers, schools, clinics. And then also really importantly, the sector that you represent, the humanitarian refugee space, which is, I think, one of the hugely kind of impactful and important areas that the sector, delivers products into. So yeah, we kind of firmly believe and see that. I think this is, even more true and in the urgent scenarios of the humanitarian settings and refugee camps. So, of course, we're talking light and safety, phones and connectivity, livelihoods and jobs, and schools and clinics as well. But with them delivering all this impact and hundreds of millions of products, there is, of course, a waste stream that comes from it. And as Alif was just saying, this is challenging to deal with when there are no take-back facilities, recycling facilities. The consumer awareness is low, the business models are not developed. And there is a cost to it as well, right? And I think everybody knows that the world's problems are growing and the funding to fix it is declining. So I think we all kind of need to get smart about how we deliver programs in a way that is kind of efficient and integrated. And I think that's been one of the interesting kind of evolutions of e-waste in the off-grid solar space. We really started thinking about it of e-waste as a problem, as a cost, and then kind of now moving more towards kind of circularity approaches and thinking of opportunities to do kind of move up that waste hierarchy. It's about reducing the waste, reusing through repair and refurbishment. And then, when they ultimately do reach the end of life, I think that recycling needs to be there. But Google had its AGM in Nairobi, I think three weeks ago, and we had a meeting of our circularity working group and partners and launched the repair lab with SolarAid. And that's kind of a real focus on, as it suggests, repair, which I think is really interesting also in the humanitarian context, as it's extending the life of products, so extending that impact and affordability, but also creating jobs and opportunities for kind of the local repair and value chains and income. And yeah, so I think really turning it from burden to opportunity, and we're kind of working with our members to look at some of the kind of the products, the trainings, the spare parts, and the rest of it. And I think there's some interesting opportunities for the Googler part of the industry to better connect with GPA as well. So I'm looking forward to learn kind of what's happened in Bidi and Cox's Bazar, understand where that's at, and think about how we collaborate to overcome this this issue, and I think make us all more impactful and more efficient with the resources that we've got. So yeah, that's my opening remarks. As Alif showed on the agenda, we've got two case studies. First, we're going to go to Uganda and the Bidi camp, and then to Bangladesh and Cox's Bazar. I'm very pleased. And then after that, let me say we're going to have some Q&A and group discussion. So I see that there's a lively chat going already, which is great. Feel free to post your questions there or write them down on a bit of paper, and you can stick your digital hand up and unmute and ask it later. But yeah, we'll do the two presentations and then come together for the group discussion. So yeah, thank you very much. And with that, let me introduce Sarai from IOM and Abu, if he's available. I'm not sure. I heard he is also out on visiting the site and has got difficult access to connectivity. But yeah, Sarai, over to you, please. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for that introduction. And indeed, unfortunately, our colleague Abu is actually quite engaged in the field, so wasn't able to join. The network is really not reliable there. So I'll be actually presenting, but then, of course, if there are any other follow-up questions or anything, would be happy to organize any bilateral meetings or even answer here, any questions that you may have. So thank you so much. As Drew mentioned, I'm Sarai. I'm the project officer at IOM Uganda, working on innovation and private sector engagement, and been focusing on scaling the e-waste initiative that we have in the Bidi refugee settlement, focusing on repair of electronics, battery repurposing, etc. So next slide. Just to give you a little bit of background on how this project came into realization and why was what was the need actually that we're trying to address. So as Drew was also mentioning, over the past year, actually, there's been a big amount of distribution of solar solutions, like solar lanterns and off-grid solar products, distributed by humanitarian organizations to people affected by crisis. What happens, and mostly in displacement settings, is that when these products actually break or reach the end of life, there's actually no systems, there's no connection to be able to repair them, to be able, to take back actually. So all these services are usually not available in this context. And as I mentioned, in displacement settings and refugee settlements, this is very complicated because they usually lack the infrastructure, not only for recycling, but definitely even for repair, for repair or safe disposal, basically. So one of the most common practices when these systems are not available is that communities actually just dump or burn when these products reach the end of life. And because of the components that actually electronic products have, this becomes very hazardous for the health of communities and the environment. So this is how IOM started thinking about this project. In the next slide, I'll tell you a little bit also of the assessment. So as you can see here in the map, the Bidi refugee settlement is actually in West Nile in Uganda, very close to the border with South Sudan. So it's hosting around 270,000 refugees from South Sudan since the crisis that started in 2016. Bidi is actually completely off-grid. So basically community members, refugees and host community members living there actually rely on off-grid products. So in 2020, to understand better the use of solar energy devices, not only in Bidi, but also in refugee camps and settlements in Uganda and Kenya, IOM conducted an assessment across 5 settlements in Kenya and Uganda. You can see here. And in the end, Bidi actually was selected to have a pilot for e-waste management. You'll see here in the next slides a little bit of how it progressed since the start of the project in 2021 until today, because there's been a lot of adaptations actually since this pilot started, and also a little bit of expansion. So also the project started really targeting solar products, and now it targets a much broader streams also of electronics. So you can see that from that assessment in 2020, we found out that in Bidi, 57% of people actually dispose broken electronics, they just dump them in the bush. 18% actually burn them, as I mentioned, exposing themselves to very toxic components and emissions. And 62% actually just kept them at home because of the value that they actually perceive they have, because there was no disposal options. Next slide. So just to show you a little bit of how the model currently looks like in Bidi, and of course, then later we can get into more details because as you can see, it's a bit complex. I'm just gonna go around it in a summary. So this is the current model that we have. basically what we have supported throughout the past 4 years is that the trained technicians, both refugees and host community members that we trained in the pilot phase of the project from 2021 to 2023 have been supported to become a cooperative. So this cooperative is called BEMCOS, so it's the Bidi Electronic Waste Management Multipurpose Cooperative Society. I'll just refer to it as BEMCOS, and it was officially registered in 2024. Why I'm mentioning this is because I'm going to be mentioning BEMCOS a lot, because right now they're actually running and owning the model. So they actually enabling this cooperative formation will really make that it supported much more the ownership of the full model, right now fully owned by the community, and it also supports a more sustainable business model in the future, you know, when maybe funding grant will not be actually available anymore at the level that it's been for the pilot in this phase. So it all starts, of course, with community awareness, because of course the lack of awareness in the community about e-waste is very high. Definitely in Bidi and refugee settlements where there's no system, you really need to start with a very comprehensive community awareness. And then this is how we start collecting actually e-waste, electronic products. So there's two main components. If there are electronic products like solar lanterns, radios, phones, or any other electronic, we bring them to the repair facilities across the settlement that we have established, and the technicians aim to repair them. If the products can be repaired, as Drew was mentioning, at least they go back to the community, and at least we can ensure that you're extending the life cycle of those products. If they are not repairable, at least you can ensure that the spare parts that are high quality, you can also utilize them for a circular economy model of repairs. And if not, at least you can ensure a safe disposal as well, rather than being burned or dumped anywhere else. Now, this model that started as free repairs back in the pilot, now all these repair services are at a fee to really try to make a sustainable business model. And this brings revenue, as you can see at the end, to the cooperative. On the other side, we have a battery laboratory. We call it the BAT Lab, and it has a technology that you can see here to test lithium battery cells. Now, lithium battery cells are the most hazardous component and very difficult usually to have technology to also recycle it. So with support with our private sector partners, we set up this BAT Lab. So all these end-of-life batteries, we test them. If they still have use, we can repurpose them into the battery packs that you see there. Now, these battery packs are being licensed by the Ugandan National Bureau of Standards to be sold back into the market. And they can power small businesses, they can power hospitals. We really adapt, well, the technicians actually that have been trained can really adapt these battery packs actually to according to the electricity needs of the community, whether it's a bigger hospital, whether it's a bigger business, or it will be a small household actually that wants to use it for personal use. And this also brings revenue then back to the cooperative. All this is tracked by the community response app, which actually out of every repair collection, both the community mobilizers and the technicians input data, and this data is shared with our private sector partners. And just as a very nice example, everything goes back to then a design of those products. If those products are actually not designed to be repaired, they are actually not designed to be durable, then you will find many more bottlenecks on the way. So this data, for example, supported our partner also Bright Products to develop a new model of the solar lantern that would be more durable, that has that repairability component as well in mind. So that we make also that link with the private sector partners that we have, also to really focus on the user needs in the settlements. You can see here that this initiative has been funded by Innovation Norway since the beginning, and that we currently have 4 private sector partners, Bright Products, Asale Africa, Open Energy Labs, and the WE Center. But of course, we are also open to expand the partnerships as we aim to really scale the initiative. Next slide. So just to show you, this is a little bit of the expansion. Basically, what started with only 1 kiosk in one of the zones of the refugee settlement, now it has been turned into 5. So what we piloted through this phase, which is the transition to scale, is to actually have 2 mobile kiosks. so we can actually bring the services closer in the most extensive areas as well, to communities, because they are very extensive areas. And then we have 3 actually static kiosks that are fully powered by solar energy. So they are solarized kiosks, and in this kiosk is where they also do the repairs and the battery testing. The bad lab is only in one zone because, of course, it wouldn't be actually feasible or realistic, to have more bad labs, and it's actually not needed to just have one bad lab in one zone. In the others, the repair kiosk, they can all do the same level of repairs, but they are working in different models to really see how best we can bring these services to communities. And you can see here just the cooperative actually logo as well in one of the zones. Next slide. So a little bit of how we have involved as well the community throughout this project. We organize, monthly engagement with community members, both with the cooperative, but also with the community, to really co-design all the phases of the project. So since the pilot, we actually integrated the feedback, and for the transition to scale and in next phases that there will be, we always really try to co-design them with them and see what are the real needs of the community. So for example, the expansion of services to actually have presence in all the other areas, to expand to other electronics, this all came from the needs that the community was highlighting after the first pilot. That they were the ones saying like, yeah, but maybe one center there is too far for us. We cannot actually reach it, right? So this is a little bit of how we've been co-designing, not only with the community, but of course also involving the government, the stakeholders, and our private sector partners and NGOs as well, to really make sure that every stakeholder is actually aligned when we are designing every phase of the project. Also, we identified youth from both the refugee and host community members to actually be involved in the full initiative, also fostering that social cohesion between communities. And what is really key as well of the initiatives is the team of community mobilizers that actually continuously do awareness campaigns and hold feedback meetings with the community to really ensure, that we are adapting and really targeting the needs that they have. So you can see here a little bit of also some of the codes or that we have gathered through the initiative, how it's actually has affected the livelihood situation, the environmental situation, and the social situation of community members that have been involved throughout the initiative. Next slide. So some of the key successes, I won't go into detail, but of course, you have them here, and later on we'll go into the questions, but just to be time sensitive. So definitely key successes is really engaging refugees and host communities in all the planning and implementation and monitoring, because this really encourages the ownership of the initiative. Honestly, and we have really seen that even in the cooperative formation, that now the community members really own the initiative. And this is very important for sustainability, actually. Also, we did a willingness to pay assessment in the settlement to really assess how all these services at a fee would be, if the community actually would be willing to pay for these services, right? And actually, we realized that 80% were willing to pay for these services because they were needed. And they were highlighting that if it's quality services that are in line, with the willingness to pay, but also with the market, communities will actually pay. And this is what we've been seeing so far since the model actually shift to this repair as a service in December 2024, that communities are indeed continue to utilize the services, even if they have shifted from free repairs into a cost. We also see that these revenue sharing models and market-driven approaches actually work and can really make humanitarian operations more sustainable in the long term, which is really important to then ensure that there are no gaps in operations and they actually continue running beyond project runs, for example. And that collaboration with the private sector is very important. They bring technical expertise and access to markets, it's very important for the full model also to work. And a few of the successes I think I already mentioned is the cooperative that has been created, and it's being supported through financial literacy and business development trainings, which are also very key to make sure, that a new cooperative or a new business, like any other, would actually need also that financial literacy component to really learn how to actually manage that business. And so far, we have actually created 22 jobs for refugee and host community members through this initiative. And a very interesting fact, I would say, is that out of the 4,500 collection lanterns in the pilot, 95% actually were repaired, which is a very high percentage actually of repairs. Also really showing, that if you have, I think Drew also mentioned spare parts, if you really have the right spare parts, then you can really extend the life cycle actually of those products rather than just discarding them before. Next slide. So some risks, I won't enter again into details, but some of the risk I would say that would need to be taken into consideration when piloting these models based on the lessons learned that we have from our project is definitely infrastructure and logistical constraints, definitely in displacement settings or refugee settings. Definitely the access to affordable and quality spare parts for the repairs, and really the need for a stronger local supply chain in order to access these spare parts. That's really key, actually, when we're dealing with all the repairs for different electronics. Of course, the over-reliance on donor funding, when you're trying to really look into more community-based business models that would aim to run in the long run, actually. Definitely that community affordability, but not only community affordability and willingness to pay, also to ensure that that willingness to pay is aligned with the market. Because if you only focus then on the willingness to pay, chances are that you could also disrupt the market, right? If it's too low just based on what community gives you. So I think that was also one of the key lessons. We conducted both a market assessment and a willingness to pay assessment, and that really informed, how to, for example, really build this market-based model. And next slide, just to wrap up. Also link with the risk a little bit on the barriers that you could find, that if they are also not addressed or taken into consideration, they could really risk that a pilot might not be successful, or actually that you cannot reach scalability level, right? So definitely that lack of understanding and community awareness on the risk of e-waste, that's definitely one of the barriers that, if it's not addressed with the right awareness raising, can be a barrier for scaling and even to implement a pilot. Financial barriers, of course, because the upfront investment costs for infrastructures and logistic and skilled labor, that can also be one of the barriers, because it's always it's a higher cost actually when you're starting to build a pilot. The e-waste volumes is also one of the main things to look at, to really have consistent and sufficient volumes of e-waste for repairs, for refurbishment, for disposal, to make it sustainable. Of course, also to be compliant, and aligned with the national e-waste policies, and also to advocate to have, for example, those policies sensitive in displacement settings, and enforced as well, which sometimes, they can also, you can also face a lot of challenges at that level. And then, of course, the skills, right? Like electronics are very broad. So actually really building the right skills to be able to offer repair services or other services to all electronics is also one of the barriers. We started with solar products, as I mentioned, and then slowly broadening that scope. But it definitely takes a lot of trainings because the skills are not the same when you're trying to fix a solar lantern from one model that then if you aim to repair a mobile phone, right? So the skills that you actually need are very different. So I think that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much. I hope I was in time, and sorry if I was just a bit fast, but I just wanted to cover everything, and of course then happy to answer any more questions in detail. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sarah. That was perfect. Great. Yeah, great to learn about BEMCO and the incredible 95% repair rate and 22 jobs created. I see you've already stimulated a few questions in the chat, but we'll visit that after the next presentation. And Ang Fiu Kiao says, indeed, you are a fast speaker. I don't know if you're Spanish, Sarai, but it sounds like some of my
Yes,
colleagues.
indeed.
Yeah, cool. good. There is a recording. Maybe you can watch it back on 0.5x if you want to recatch any parts. Cool. Nice. But yeah, next up, we're going to go to Cox's Bazar and hear from Robin from the Energy NGO Forum for Public Health, Tala from UNHCR, and Amy as well from UNITAD GPA. Yeah, take it away, please. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Very nice to be here, and great to hear about the initiative in Bidi. So I'll kick us off just giving a very brief overview of some of the origin story of this innovation pilot in Cox's. So next slide. So yeah, this pilot was definitely a long time in the making and involved quite a range of stakeholders and partners that were really working to see how we could solve the challenge of rising e-waste in Cox's Bazar. And Amy and Robin will definitely go into a little bit more of the details. So even though it was quite a long time exploring things, and it was based on some of the work that had already been done in Bangladesh, as well as informed by some research that had been done in a global level, we still have the challenge that with the many constraints, many of which were extremely familiar from the Bidi case, we still didn't really know whether this was going to work. And the idea of setting up an e-waste take-back scheme, whether it was feasible, financially viable, etc. So it was a bit of a risky project to start. But this is where really UNHCR's approach to innovation came in. So really trying to see how we can develop solutions with forcibly displaced people. So UNHCR has a program from the Innovation Service that's specifically dedicated to developing solutions to climate and environmental challenges. So this is where we collaborate to see how we could start creating that safe space for experimentation. So UNHCR's approaches to innovation and its principles were really something that permeated throughout the whole project. And central to this is innovating by, with, and for communities. So really wanting to see how is it that refugees experience the challenge and define the challenge in their terms to see how the solution will actually meet their priorities. So this is something also similar to the case in Bidi that really was at the heart of all the work and how it continued. And then was also just looking at how we could apply principles of innovation where we support kind of like promising ideas, even if they don't have that proof of a concept. So by establishing this innovation pilot, we created kind of like a space for experimenting with communities where we knew that things were not necessarily going to work. So with that initial investment, we wanted to see how to kind of like trial things, and failure was fine, and just take that failure to see how the project would develop. So through the innovation program, this grew to then create the model that Amy and Robin will take us through. So over to you, Amy.
Great, thank you, Tala. And I'll be brief. We can go to the next slide. Yeah, just to give also a bit of an origin story, and I'll start actually from the right on the partnership side. At the GPA, we kind of connected the public and private sector on this topic, and we had been discussing with Schneider Electric for many years, who are a kind of LTA provider of solar lanterns to UNHCR, IOM, and other agencies. And they were always wondering, like, where do their lanterns go, and how are they used, and how can they be repaired if that kind of distribution process is disconnected from the supplier. And so Schneider came to us and said, hey, can we set up a local repair shop? We know we've put a lot of lanterns into Cox's Bazar and other places. And so we at the GPA kind of coordinated between Schneider, UNHCR on the ground, and then NGO Forum for Public Health, the local NGO, and UNHCR's energy implementing partner came on to really manage this project and bring it to life. And we've had great input from Electricien Sans Frontières to do the training really on the ground, as well as Bright Products. I see Lorena on the line. So it's quite a big collaboration. I think the need in general within the Cox's Bazar camps, there are 1 million Rohingya refugees living in 2 sets of camps in Cox's Bazar, which is actually a forest in a rural village. And so there's quite big waste management issues in general. And then electronic waste, of course, is a subset of that. And there's kind of a gap in local capacity. Of course, there's an informal system of people looking and coming and taking those e-waste products and then kind of selling them up the chain. But we thought, okay, how can we really localize those repair products? And as Sarai said, to kind of extend the lifetime of lanterns. of course, we then also realized there's a lot of other e-waste that was there, really to look at, you know, the biggest repairs needed actually were around lights and fans and phones. So it kind of blossomed from there. So we started with the lantern repair need and expanded. So we kind of had a two-part model where we wanted to set up a local training and repair center and try to set up a circular model for e-waste, which has actually been quite challenging, and to set up that e-waste take back scheme in parallel. And we've been kind of working as quite a collective partnership on this since 2020. And we can go to the next slide. So kind of very similar to Sarai to visualize how this has been, the project has been set up in two components. So kind of starting on the left, looking at how to kind of take back those products from local households. It was a small cash incentive provided through the initial project, the e-waste take back. We kind of weighed the products and just tested or did a kind of market assessment of the local market to see how much people were already selling their e-waste for, and made a kind of system based on that. So people would, their e-waste would get weighed, and then there was a price per product or per kg, depending on the item. And then that was managed by NGO Forum, sent to the Green Innovation Hub, which is the local repair center, which is actually in Kutupalong refugee camp. And then if it was not repairable, then we had paid a local e-waste recycler to come. Actually, the e-waste recycler was based in Dhaka, so actually a 9-hour drive away. But they would come and take the e-waste on a regular basis to do a kind of responsible disposal, or the products were repaired and then returned to the households. And the kind of second component of the project was around local skills development. So that's really grounded and led by Robin, who will speak next. And the initial training was provided by Electriciens Sans Frontières. And we kind of looked at, okay, what are the O&M needs in the whole space? It's, of course, there's kind of electricity basics. There's, I think, 50% of the solar streetlights in the camps are not working or partially working. So that's a big repair need. There's solar mini grids that are operational, some yes, some no, so need repair, and also solar lanterns and solar home systems. So we kind of brought these needs that we saw in the space to the community members and said, you know, what is your current skill set and what do you want to learn? And they had a whole kind of consultation process and then designed the curriculum from there, from Electriciens Sans Frontières. And Schneider Electric Foundation actually provided the actual training equipment that was set up in the e-waste repair center. Next slide, please. Yeah, and as I said, this has been quite a collaborative project. So NGO Forum has really led the day-to-day operations on the ground. UNHCR was a funder of the two phases of the project, the e-waste take back, and then now the kind of local skills development and actually paying local volunteers to do the e-waste in the camps. Azizu is the e-waste recycling company that does the e-waste recycling. Schneider Electric Foundation and Electriciens Sans Frontières kind of provide the training equipment and the TOT model and provide ongoing technical advisory and support. And then Schneider Electric proper and Bright, they provide the spare parts and technical advisory and kind of actually act as a thought partner to set this all up. And we at the GP have been kind of coordinating this since the beginning. So it's been quite a collaborative project that took a lot of brains to set it up. And with that, over to you, Robin, on the next slide. Thanks.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, everyone. I'm Robin. When we first started the US management project, we also assumed that there will be lots of solar lanterns in the camp, but we were also surprised to find the dynamic waste in the camp, mostly light, fans, mobiles, batteries, and etc. And there is some repair shop already exists based on the capacity community have. And there are different types of waste exist in the camp. Some of them are for community household, like solar home system, eco solar products, solar lanterns, and there is some solar street light as well, which also become waste after a certain amount of time. So our focus was not only for the solar lanterns, but also for all the available e-waste we have observed in the camp. Next slide, please. And these are some typical photos which we have observed in the camp. Some mobile phones, LED bulbs, solar panels, batteries, and fans which we have observed in the camp, along with set cables. Next slide, please. The Green Innovation Hub is located at Kutupalong registered refugee camp. It was strategically set at Kutupalong camp because it is one of the oldest refugee camp in the Cox's Bazar. And we have two collection points for the US. One is Kutupalong and another is Noyapara. It's a different region in Teknaf. So these 2 points were set because it's one of the oldest camp in the Cox's Bazar. From these 2 points, we collected the e-waste from the community, and during our pilot project, we have collected like 9.4 tons of e-waste from the like around 4,000 community households, and with a limitation, we couldn't collect all the e-waste because of the availability of fund. Like one household was able to deposit only 2 types of e-waste from their household, and in exchange of e-waste, they got little incentivized. Next slide, please. From Green Innovation Hub, we continued the legacy of training, and thanks to Schneider Electric and electricians and sponsors for developing the training module and providing the TOT. So far, we have trained more than 200 community refugee volunteers, and among them 26% were females. So for the training provide facilitation, we didn't like give any strict criteria to onboard the training. So it's like if someone has the literacy, they can also come and join the training. If someone else also don't have any literacy, still they can join in a different batch. Training was provided for 2 months. 1 month is practical session at the hub, and another one we like engage them in the community to do some repair in the community household, and also do some solar home system inspection as well. Next slide, please. And we have some great achievements throughout the Green Innovation Hub and US Management pilot. Among our 220 plus trained energy ambassadors, like 40 energy ambassadors were first engaged to do a like electrical assessment in the camp. So the overall assessment was done entirely by them. It was first refugee-led electrical assessment in the Rohingya refugee camps. And from our first cohort of 40 energy ambassadors, they have so far repaired like 1,404 US items. It's a mix of the light, fan, torch light, table fans, and solar lanterns of different technologies, some from bright, some from sunlight, and others. They also supported the community with their solar home system inspection. They visited the community household and checked individual solar home system, and if there is any needs of troubleshooting, they do the troubleshoot and make sure the solar home system is functional for a longer period. And they also supported the community in 2 camps with repairing 130 solar street light. And among the trained energy ambassador, we have like found like one energy ambassador. He's already opened his electronic item repair shop in the camp, which is still running, and he is earning his livelihood through that repair shop. And some other energy ambassador is still doing as an electrician job in the camp. So they are either providing the like household system electrical support, doing some solar fan installation or light installation, and earning some cash from the community. And the overall trainee was 161 from the community. Next slide, please. Okay. Our energy ambassador was not confined only in Green Innovation Hub or electrical repair in the camp. So one thing happened, like in 2 camps, Camp 1 West and 26, there was a fire hazard which affected a lot of community in the camps. So our trained and energy ambassador from the Green Innovation Hub opened up a one-stop service point in the camp in the same area where the fire hazard had happened. And with that one-stop service point, they repaired some solar street light and also repaired 383 US items, giving it a second life, and supported 365 individuals. And those were not like one single item. There is a diverse range of items of solar lamp, solar panel, solar lantern, torchlight, and other some small scale pico solar lighting devices. And the success rate of our repairing from that one-stop service point is around 89%. Next slide, please. Yes, from that project we have got some good lesson learned. There is a like wider waste management challenge in the camp, but US is a portion of it, and there is a like lack of experienced partners in the camp in the area. When we first started to explore which organization has the capacity to manage the US. In Bangladesh, we have only found 5. Only Adiju was the one with the top quality and like top recycling facility. And there is some government restriction as well. There is no regulation for the US management in the camp setting, but yes, there is a legislation for the host community, but for the camp US management, the regulation is still missing, which is needed to incorporate with the national legislation. And to run a business model in the camp is a challenge because of the policy from the government. It is not like officially permittable to do some repair in exchange of cash. And there is a great opportunity to like engage youth on like women and youth to promote more skill development activity in the camp. And obviously private partnership is crucial to like to scale up this type of activity. Before I conclude, I would like to say that Green Innovation Hub is a great success so far in the camp, but we need more support to scale up this activity, to provide or facilitate training to more refugee energy ambassador. Right now, Green Innovation Hub is located in one camp and providing support in EdGEC and 2 or 3 camps. So with the support from the partners from the different sectors, it will help us to facilitate the support to the 1 million Rohingya refugee. Thank you. Over to you, Amy.
Yeah, I think back to you. Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, thank you, Robin, Amy, and Tala. Yeah, it's great to have another perspective from that side. And yeah, we have some questions coming already, and please drop some more, and we'll try and get through as many as we can in the next 10 minutes. So we'll start off with this one around spare parts and the availability of spare parts in local markets. Sarai, I think this is to you, but also keen to hear if anyone from the Bangladesh team's got insights as well.
Yeah, probably. I think this is going to be a common challenge, I think, across these initiatives, because access to quality spare parts in local markets, it is indeed a challenge. And then when you're looking at the supply chain in the refugee settlement, it becomes even more challenging. I was reading the questions for both on the access, but also on if they are standard across different products. So I think both of them are actually worth highlighting. So for example, from Bidi experience, not all the spare parts, for example, are available in local markets, which then we have also supported with actually international supply chain as well. But indeed, there is a lot of affordable and high quality spare parts in the local markets. However, the relation and the supply chain reaching then Bidi has been also something that we've been trying to support the cooperative now in building. So with suppliers in big cities like Arua or Kampala in Uganda. So those supply chains can also be fostered, so with, first of all, the cooperative has also done a mapping. Now that we are expanding to other electronics, trying to see the most common spare parts, that are actually needed and from which brands. We have supported those connections with the private sector to also bring to the attention, for example, not only Bright Products, which has been our main partner since the beginning, but also with Delight, Sankin, the other common brands in the settlement. So to also start conversations with them saying like, hey, this is the common failures that now, our cooperative is actually finding in your products. How do we go around the spare parts? What is the availability? What is the price? Can we have like an agreement on that? Can you refer us to suppliers, that locally can also source those spare parts to the cooperative? So of course, it's a long-term effort, because then every product will need different spare parts. Radios, for example, it's easier, we have identified. For lanterns, it's a bit more specific according to the model. For example, for other products like radios, it's easier. Fans as well, torches, it might be more standardized spare parts there. which are also more locally available. So, it depends on the assessment. That might differ in the context in Bangladesh, for example. So also, I think our colleagues there will have more insights. But from Uganda, this is what we have identified, right? So first the mapping on the spare parts, then by models and by types, what can be available in the local market, what cannot, try to foster those relations, and then try to really establish those supply chains, then reaching, the settlement. So I hope that helps to clarify a little bit on that.
Yeah, great. Thanks. So you're sourcing local spare parts both locally and with your partners in the private sector partners that are supplying products. Yeah.
Yeah. It really depends on the models and types of electronics, but we have so far supported both and trying to now make it as localized as possible. So for example, batteries now, we're really trying to do that all locally at the Bad Lab, right? Because even, for example, when you ship spare parts, let's say from China, if you have the batteries, then it even takes longer, right? But if you manage then to, for example, have all locally sourced batteries thanks to the Bad Lab, then you are already having a very big component for all these repairs, right? Already all done locally, or at least in the region, right? Between Kenya and Uganda, but not necessarily sourcing it internationally. So that's, for example, one of the focus that we've been doing, really to try to identify which components can be fully done locally, or at least in the region, and then identify the ones that that was just impossible to identify in the local markets. But for example, on the battery side, we're doing a lot of progress thanks to this partnership with South Africa, definitely, which it's a component that you find in for example across all the solar lanterns, and that really helps also on the repairs.
Yeah, nice. Thank you very much. Cool. Then the next question is from Celine about specific national policy barriers. And Amy, I see you mentioned there that it took 3 years to get the registration, and that your patience was tested. Maybe you can speak more about that one and any other kind of significant barriers you faced.
Yeah, I would just highlight kind of the governance system in Cox's Bazar. Is there's the kind of colleagues in Cox's Bazar town, and then the local camp managers who are both part of the Bangladeshi government, and everything needs to be kind of going through them. And so it was quite a back and forth just to really get the project, vision and everything set up. And it took quite a while for everyone to kind of get on the same page and the approvals to be granted, both at the kind of Cox's Bazar town level and then down at the local level within the camps. So that did take a lot of back and forth, a lot of dialogue. And then I would also say that there's restrictions within the Rohingya context, that the colleagues cannot, or the Rohingya refugees cannot access mobile money. And so we did try to set up a circular model, or that was the idea at first, to see if people could actually pay for the repairs. And in the end, it was, having any sort of mobile money to be able to set up a business model in the innovation center was not possible, just based on the regulations. So we had to find some workarounds, go through the kind of local cash system, and see how to do some like very local incentives for when we took back the e-waste. And then in the end, kind of what happened was basically any households would come, bring their broken e-waste, and then it would be tagged. And then if it could be repaired, it would just be given back for free. And then if not, it would be sent to e-waste. So yeah, those are the kind of bigger policy barriers. I do think there's movement and discussions on the kind of cash and mobile wallets as well. But yeah, that's still quite a barrier there in the local context.
Yeah. Well, thanks for explaining. And there is a follow-up. Yeah. Sorry, Robin, did you want to come in on that as well? Maybe not.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Amy. You have covered already. It was a bit difficult to take the permission from the government initially, because the idea of the US is completely new. So it was the most challenge to convince them to understand that it's a big challenge. So thanks to our assessment data, which helps to portray the information to the government, and finally they agreed to set up the project. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you for adding. I see that Courtney's asked a follow-on question in the chat, and I'm mindful of the time, so let me quickly jump in. Courtney, I think it was in partnership with Accela Africa, which was a spin-off from Acceleron. But yeah, I think a very interesting one. I wonder if we can arrange a side chat offline with Courtney and link to the repair lab and what's happening there. I think there's a good conversation to kick off.
Yeah, sorry, I was actually gonna say that because I think you mentioned you're working together with SolarAid, so we'll be very happy actually to set that up, that call, and really get maybe more into the details, because we definitely have followed up on that impact of the repairs on the batteries, and we have all this data. But this will take a bit longer, I would say, knowing that we only have 4 minutes left. So maybe I'll just drop my email to you in the chat, and then I think we can take it from there.
Cool. So we have at least one example of better collaboration between the humanitarian and the off-grid sector. So it's a good result already. Yeah, my reflections, I've been really enjoyed seeing these presentations. I've been kind of struck by the systemic thinking and like the commitment to looking beyond the project cycles and the broader impacts beyond just the consumers. Thinking about the environment and livelihoods and sustainability, and also the kind of the depth of partnerships as well, and the coordination that this represents. Including with the private sector players was I wasn't kind of expecting this level of integration. So that's great to see, but also reminded of some of the unique and extreme challenges that the projects you're doing face. So yeah, kudos and good luck as they continue. And yeah, with that, I'll pass back to Liv to give a few notices and wrap up. So yeah, thanks again to all of the presenters for sharing their projects, and look forward to hearing how it goes.
Thanks, Drew, and thank you to our presenters and for all the audience for their questions and reflections. Really wonderful insights. As we near the end of the session today, I'd like to share some resources on e-waste management that you can explore further. First one is the GPA's report on e-waste management for off-grid solar solutions. This remains a key reference point for anyone working at the intersection of e-waste and displacement. And then you'll find some practical guidance developed by our task force members, drawing on their direct experience as they've shared today, looking at e-waste management in displacement settings. For example, the case study by UNHCR on the Green Innovation Hub pilot. And then for a more visual overview, you can also check out the IOM video showcasing their project in Bidi. And if today's session has sparked your interest, we invite you to engage with us further through the task force. We will share our communication details in the chat in a bit, so you can check out that. And then the recently published State of Repair in the Off-Grid Solar Sector by SolarAid identifies some of the critical barriers and also offers recommendations to improve projects' lifespans and reduce e-waste. Then we have ASMAP's Off-Grid E-Waste Management Toolkit, which is another resource that provides step-by-step guidance, tools, and examples for stakeholders working on e-waste projects. And finally, one of our task force members, WeRec Coalition, has a waste management facility mapping, which is a regularly updated tool that gives an overview of available recycling options in different regions. It's a great starting point if you're just looking at high quality recycling or disposal companies in your field of operation. So please check that out as well. And going forward, we're also in the process of developing a joint toolkit as the e-waste task force, looking specifically at e-waste in displacement settings. This will build on all the insights that we've gathered from the pilot projects and also offer some guidance tailored specific to displacement context. So stay tuned for its release in the upcoming months. And as we wrap up today's webinar, I want to thank you all the presenters, Drew for the facilitation and all of your participation and contributions. It really made a very lively discussion for us, and I hope that it was useful to you as well. Please stay connected with the GPA and our partners for practical ideas in terms of how we can support your work going forward. And all the resources mentioned, the recording and presentations will be available on the GPA website for easy access. Thank you once again for your time, and we look forward to continuing our work together. Have a wonderful rest of your days.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.